What is good? Today we are back making a trap beat in Logic Pro from scratch. And trap beats are kind of one of the most popular types of beats that new producers especially are getting into. It's very easy to kind of pick up on. We're gonna make one from scratch. I'm gonna take a track at a time using my template here today. I've already got my melody loaded up. So I went ahead on Splice and found a couple of stems here to start building my beat. This is my melody here, so it's gonna be a flute. And then this breaks down into several other tracks. I've got this cool piano stem. So I'm using this beat template here today, which is available in the first link in the description if you are a producer. It'll be exactly what you see here, and then you'll have instrument tracks, melody tracks, and then some for your drums as well as effects, as well as your audio tag. So go check that out if you're making beats in Logic Pro. I swear it'll help you save a lot of time. So I'm just gonna solo out this flute and then just go ahead and start adding some drums. In the top right here, I'd go to browsers, and then it opens up all of these folders. I'm gonna look for my drum kits folder and just find a sample pack that I really want to use today. So I'm going to switch it up today and drag in a rim shot, which I want to use instead of a clap. And then I'm going to create my MIDI region, drag that out, open it up, and draw in exactly where that should be. So it'll be right here in that sample one track, boom. And then I want to slice that in the middle, and then I'm going to join these two regions together by hitting Command J, open that up, and now I can change anywhere that I want some variation with my snares. So I want this one like right at the end there to kind of keep the beat going. And then right here at the end I want to add something that spices it up. So right here at the end I got two of them, and then I'm going to actually just decrease the velocity down so that kind of rolls out. So that's a simple little snare pattern. And then actually what I want to do is just copy all these first notes that I laid in and just hold Option, drag up, and then that's gonna duplicate those notes right into that second sample. Drag in another snare that I want to layer it with. So it just adds a little bit of extra impact to that rim shot that I had there in the beginning. So that's cool with me. I'm gonna move on to my hi-hats now. And so I'll just create that MIDI region, draw that out, so loops, and then find myself a nice hi-hat. So my hi-hats track, I just open Alchemy here on the left. And if you're not using this template, you'll simply find Alchemy here in this instrument track, open that up into stereo, and then go to File, Initialize Preset, and then just go to Advanced, in this tab here at the top, and then all I'll simply do is with my hi-hat sample is drag that into the sample track right over there on the left. So if I hit Command K, that opens up my keyboard, and now I can play these notes in with my keys, or if I wanted to just draw them in, that's cool too. But to make this quick, I would hit Brush Tool, and in this note region, just find the pitch of the hi-hat that I want to go with, and then switch that to 1/8 note. Command, click, and drag all the way out to the end. Increase the velocity a bit so it's louder. I'm gonna just adjust these so they play a little bit more abruptly. And now the fun part begins, is where I can start adding rolls and cool things that I want to include in my beat. So I'm actually change this to 132. With my brush tool selected, I can just drag that out and make some cool rolls. And on this last roll here, I'm gonna select all the notes. In my velocity tab, I'm going to just draw that down so the velocity goes down. I'm going to change that actually so it goes up. I'm going to make it rise. So I've got this first 4 bars of hi-hats done, and if I split that, I can now take some out, add some in on my second track so it adds more variation. I just added some final touches here, and also just messed with the velocity a bit on some different notes. You don't have to have a perfect answer, just try things out, switch some velocities around, fluctuate the pitch. I want to add a cool effect so it kind of pans them to the left and right. I like to use this plugin called Pancake 2. It's basically just a tremolo, and it'll pan things to the left and the right of you. But also if you don't have this, or if you're just using stock, let's go to modulation. Tremolo, stereo at the bottom. I want to be about a half rate. So you can hear that it's really moving left and right. I don't want it to pan that hard, so I just simply turn down the depth just so this adds a little bit of movement. Another thing I want to do with my hi-hats is just go in and add this quick little compressor. So if I go through all of these at the top here on my compressor, each one's going to have a little bit of a different sound. So now I'm going to go through and just listen to see which one I like the most. Alright, so with my hi-hats now finished, I'm going to move on to my percussion. Open up Ultra Beat again. Let's say you're not using this template, you want to start from scratch. I'd open up Ultra Beat in that same instrument track over there on the left. And within Ultra Beat, go to this drop down here at the top. Find drum kits. Go to drag and drop samples. That's where you're able to get this exact view, where you're able to drag in samples one by one using these tracks here. So now I'm going to add some open hi-hats courtesy of Splice. Alright, so I've loaded up my Ultra Beat with all of my sounds here. I just go by each track, I can hear each of them, and then create a MIDI region here so that I can just draw them in, play around with how each one sounds. So inside my region, I'm going to select my pencil tool, go with 1/8 note for a couple of these open hi-hats. So now I'm just drawing in wherever I want these percussion notes to go. So this is really where I'm just playing around with how each of these sounds go in the beat. So with these two percussion here, I just added them so they kind of match these hi-hats that go right at the end there. So it's going to have just another layer of sound on top of it, make it more refreshing. Throwing in these perks, just keep that in mind. Sometimes layering the sounds can make them sound different and better. So always consider that. So I'm going to move on straight to my kick drum, which again is doing the same exact thing. Find a kick. I'm going to open up Ultra Beat again, drag in my kick sample to that first slot. So unless you want your neighbors to think that you're blowing up the neighborhood, turn down your kick drum velocity before you draw it in. So something like that. I was a little bit offbeat with a few of these notes, so all I'll simply do, drag all of these, go to 1/16 note, and then that will automatically put them on beat. So you can see that all these velocities are in different spots. It's not really consistent. With these notes selected, I would open MIDI transform and go to fixed velocity right here at the top. And I'm going to set that to like 70 for now. I can work up from there. But that way it's not too loud. So that's a pretty cool kick drum, I think. So also with my kick drums, you can see that they are a little bit different lengths. So if I open up MIDI transform again, I can find fixed note length, and that way all of my kicks now are the same velocity and the same length. And then I'll actually increase the velocity a little bit. And on this one kick here, I'm going to bring the velocity down. So most trap beats, you hear something called an 808. It's basically a shortened version of a bass note. I'm going to drag that into my Alchemy sampler track. And so that way, a cool trick a lot of people use is just taking that kick track down into the 808's track. I'm going to recolor this. But that way, every time the kick note hits, you're going to hear the 808 hit as well at the same time. Now my 808s, I like to increase that all the way up. So I don't know the scale of D minor, so what I'll do is select all of my notes, scale quantize, D, major minor, so that way I know any notes that I draw in now I can already have in key. Another cool thing you can do with your bass line is add some overdrive or distortion here in the distortion section. You can add more distortion, you can make your bass hit a little bit harder. This is a go-to for me in a lot of trap beats, so I think this sounds cool. So I'm going to throw in this little crash here at the very beginning. From here, I can just extend all of these out by hitting Command R after I select them. So that way, now I can just go in and start to sequence the parts of my beat that I want. So I'll make this a really quick little intro and then just really start to kind of change things out, add stuff in, and sequence my beat so that it's a full thing. Right after this intro hits, I kind of want this to break up a little bit right before the drop comes in again. So right after these first few bars, I want to have this cut. Another cool thing I like to do is with all of my melody files here, I'll create a track stack, and so that I can impact the entire set of melodies all at once. And in the summary track here on the left, I'll actually add a compressor. So on my kick track over on the left, I'll open up a bus, hit Option, click on that little knob right next to it. And then before I play my kicks, I want to turn them down because it'll make them a lot louder. So bring that down like 5 decibels. And then so back on my summary track in my compressor, I'll go to Sidechain, bus, drag and drop sample. So now I've had a sidechain applied to my melody with my kick. So every time my kick hits, my melody is going to dip a little bit so you can hear the kicks a lot more prominently. So I'm going to go ahead and tweak these settings here. So I'm going to bring the threshold up a little bit. And I only want it to peak maybe around that second, -2. So I'm going to tweak my settings here until I can get it there. So now on my compressor, you can visually see when the kick note hits, it's going to duck that melody right underneath it, so it's a lot more clear in the mix. And if I don't want it to be such a long duck, I can decrease this release knob here. What I want to do now is just find some perc loops or a perc loop that I can use to just add a little bit more rhythm. I like to do that a lot with my beats, to just add a perc loop right underneath it, something that can differentiate from the same drums that you're hearing again and again. So I've got this cool one that I'm just going to drag in and then make sure that this aligns with the same BPM. See, it's a little bit off. So I'm going to turn this power knob here, turn that on, and then just draw that out so that it matches up with my beat. So again, this is really just where you get creative, and this is where you find pockets in your beat for different effects. Like if I want risers in certain parts that lead up to the melody, I can now have a structured approach to my beat. So this is just a simple little trap beat. You know, everybody makes trap beats nowadays and takes them 10 minutes. This is exactly what I did here today. So another thing I really like to add to my beats is just some ambience type of effects. So that it almost puts you in a different place as a listener. If you want to be in the forest, if you want to have just some vinyl scratches, that's a big one that I go with a lot. It almost makes it sound like, you know, I could be at the party, I could be in the rain, you know, downtown in the city here. It just really takes you to a different place as a listener, and I think that makes everything more immersive and interesting. So like for my intro, I kind of want to have it sounding like you're at a party or something, and then I've got this little crowd noise in the background that'll be playing leading up to the drop. You know, so stuff like that. And then when the drop hits. And then also another thing I wanted to show you just for mixing purposes is on this summary track with my melodies, what I like to do is add just a channel EQ so that I can just mix this low end. If I see like, okay, that's peaking a lot right there. But that way I'm able to control the frequencies of everything in my melody all at once. So I know my kick note's going to be hitting around that range. My bass note's going to be there. So let me bring that down so that it don't collide as much. And then on my kick, if I do the same thing, I'm going to open an EQ and then solo my track. And then I'm just gonna find where I think my kick sounds really good, fits in the pocket. Like right there sounds good. So then what I wanna make sure is on my bass line is that when I play that with my bass and do the same thing, add an EQ, right in that same section, so 123 hertz on my kick, I'm gonna take that down on my bass so that they don't collide at that note, but you'll be able to hear both really distinctly. So I just added this vinyl in the background as well, just to give it even more ambiance. So just some random scratches throughout. What I'm gonna do is just show you on my master track is go to Dynamics, Adaptive Limiter, Stereo, and this is gonna open a plugin. I'll turn my out ceiling to -1, optimal look ahead, I'll just select that, and then this is where I can increase the gain of my beats so I can just hear kind of how it sounds as a final product. I basically have, a start of a beat. I'm not going to finish this on the video here today, but I will leave it for you in the outro so you get to hear the final product. So trap beats are a very popular type of beat that a lot of new producers are getting into. It's a very popular type of music. So it's a very simple process when it comes to making them in Logic Pro. So if you want to use the template that I use here today, again, that's the first link in the description below. If you made it this far in the video, why not leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because I sincerely appreciate you guys and we're trying to get to 100 by the end of the year. So if we can do that, I'll be very grateful. Keep making music, keep it simple, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.